The night my stepmother threw me into the rain, I saved a sketch instead of my keys. Does that sound crazy to you? A soaked drawing over a bed and a warm light. If it were you, what would you have grabbed? Lightning split the Atlanta sky and made the street look like a sheet of tin, slick and mean. Vanessa stood in the doorway with a wine glass in one hand and my life in the other. Her lipstick red as an exit sign. "Get out," she said, voice flat, not even loud, like she was done practicing the kindness she never really had. My crutch slipped on the steps, my bag burst open, and pages fluttered down the porch like wounded birds. The wooden bracelet my mama left me snapped in Vanessa's fist, beads skittering across the floor. Click, click, click. Yeah, that happened. I bent into the storm and hugged a single page to my chest, like a child gold thread smeared across the drawing, like sunlight trying hard to live. Across the street, a man in a gray suit stopped under an umbrella and watched a soaked girl choose a dream over a roof. I didn't know his name yet. I only knew the kind of hurt that hums in your bones when the door behind you closes for good. Let me back up because before the storm, there was music. New Orleans mornings smelled like cinnamon and laundry soap, and Mama Ruth stitched hymns into seams until I thought the needle itself could sing. "Every stitch is a prayer, baby," she'd say, tapping my wrist so I'd slow down. "Sew with your heart, not with fear." We didn't have much, but the house was padded with laughter, soft as a quilt, and Daddy came home from the road, smelling like diesel and sun, handing me little gifts from gas stations like they were jewels. I cut my first pattern at 8 on butcher paper, wobbly and proud. At 9, I signed my name in gold thread, big and messy and sure. Then the day came when Mama's hand trembled and the needle fell. A tiny sound, but the kind that steals the music from a room. The doctor said heart and rest and time did what it does. When the house went quiet forever, I sat with her wooden bead bracelet in both hands and promised I'd sew her dream to my life so tight no one could cut it loose. If you've ever lost your North Star and kept walking anyway, you know what I mean. Daddy tried, he really did. He burned through his savings staying home with me until the bills asked for more than love. When he went back out on the road, he came home with a woman named Vanessa and a smile that said maybe the world was giving us a second chance. "Call me Mama V," she said, braiding my hair, stirring red beans that tasted like comfort eyes full of soft concern. For a minute it felt like God had remembered our address. Then Daddy left on a 3-week haul, and the mask slid off like it had been waiting by the door. "Wash the dishes, do my laundry, don't touch my makeup," she said, a list that grew teeth. The first time I missed a plate, her hand cracked across my face so fast I thought the lightning had come inside. My crutch clattered and echoed in the kitchen like a bad joke. She found my sketchbook under the table and tore it down the spine page after page, the sound of paper ripping like ribs. "Dreams don't buy bread," she said, and dropped the pieces into the trash with the calm of someone taking out last night's takeout. I pulled the pages out, later, still wet, slid them between 2 old Bibles, and whispered to the dark that people could take everything but not my needle. So when she dragged me out into the storm, when she threw my bag and said, "Get out," when the beads of Mama's bracelet scattered like little wooden tears, made a strange choice that felt true in my hands, if not in my head. I held the sketch. I walked through that rain and found a bus depot and slept sitting up between vending machines while the storm drowned out the part of me that wanted to beg. In the morning, I rented a room above a bakery, low ceiling, a leak near the window, the kind of place that teaches you humility whether you want it or not. I sketched at night and sold old drawings at the flea market, enough for bread, sometimes eggs always hope. And then one evening, the wind reached through the window like a thief and snatched a page. I hobbled outside, reaching, and a black SUV rolled up to the curb. The man from the storm stepped out. Close up, he looked calm in a way that made my shoulders drop like a sunrise my body recognized. He picked up the page and held it like it might break. "You dropped your dream," he said, voice soft, and my throat closed around a thank you. "Preston Cole," he said, offering a card heavier than it looked. Gold letters pressed into the paper. "Roots and Wings, Atelier. If you're willing, come by tomorrow. I need someone who sees the world differently. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." At the front desk, the guard eyed my crutch, like it might scratch his floor, but that card with its gold edges opened the elevator. The fifth floor smelled like new fabric and lavender water. On the walls, portraits of black women wearing garments like armor and prayer. A silver-haired woman with a pincushion like a small crown didn't look up when she said, "Here to learn or to work." "To work," I said, "or to try." She slid me a strip of muslin and a needle. "Straight line. Don't be fast. Be honest." My fingers shook, my heart didn't. The needle went in and out, steady as a metronome. After a minute, she nodded. "Not bad. Hands shake, heart doesn't. That's rare." She finally smiled, quick and sideways. "Evelyn Carter." Preston walked in, then Ty loosened relief in his eyes, like he'd been holding his breath for a day, and just remembered how to exhale. "So you came," he said. "I don't have credentials," I told him, "but I have faith. I hire faith around here," he said. He gave me a little desk and a stack of paper laid out needles and thread like a quiet blessing. "Sketch me a dress that lets imperfect women feel beautiful." So I drew. Soft drape where braces rub skin hems that flex like forgiveness. A bodice that holds scars without apology, edges finished with gold thread. Evelyn leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "You're stitching your heart back together." And I had to look away because sometimes kindness hurts worse than cruelty when you've forgotten what it feels like. Meanwhile, across town, jealousy woke up hungry. Vanessa saw a photo online of me smiling next to rolls of silk and filled the screen with her rage. She found a way into Daddy's account and drained the insurance money he'd saved for me, then called a man who liked attention more than honesty. If you were me, would you have gone back to confront her or kept your head down and stitched? Be real, what would you have done? At the atelier, I put my head down and my needle up. Preston checked on me most days, not hovering, just steady like a lighthouse that doesn't need to announce itself. I told him about Mama's bracelet, the beads in a coffee tin, how the idea of kintsugi, golden seams running through broken places, made me believe in beauty again. He listened like he took notes on the inside. Then came the investor's slick suit, polished opinion standing at the end of the table with arms crossed like gates. Humanitarian concept, sure, he said like he was bored, but do people really want to see imperfection? Fashion is about beauty, not sympathy. My mouth moved before Preston's did. "No one wants pity," I said, and the steadiness in my voice surprised me. "But everyone wants to be seen. If fashion can't hold a mirror to the people who've been invisible, then what are we selling? Cloth or courage?" Silence has a sound when a room is listening. Evelyn's smile didn't show teeth the way old lions smile when a cub roars for the first time. That night, a younger designer named Kayla posted a video that dripped with sugar and poison. "So proud our company hired a disabled prodigy," she said, tilting her head at the camera. "Guess crying is the new PR trend." Comments multiplied like roaches, fast and ugly. Pity stunt. If she's so inspiring, why the crutches? I stared at my phone and felt the old panic try to climb my ribs. Preston called before I could delete my accounts. Don't hide, he said. Truth doesn't cower. Come with me tomorrow. He drove me to a special needs school in South Atlanta, a sewing room noisy with laughter. Girls in wheelchairs were learning to stitch handkerchiefs, tongues pressed to lip, in concentration. Joy so loud the world couldn't drown it. Evelyn was there too, guiding small fingers in and out, neat as Sunday shoes in a row. A girl with big eyes looked up at me and said, "Miss Amira, I saw you online. I want to be a designer like you." The class clapped, and something in my chest stood up taller than my bones. They didn't need me perfect. They needed me brave. Morning brought a bank alert that knocked the wind out of my lungs. Balance 0. Daddy didn't pick up the phone. I went to Vanessa's house because sometimes you walk into fire to find out if you're fireproof. She opened the door, smiling like a magician who thinks she's the only one who knows where the rabbit went. I asked about the money. She said, "Don't slander me," then pushed me so hard my crutch banged the step. "Take the money if you must," I said, shaky but standing, "but don't take my soul." "Someone like you doesn't have a soul to lose," she whispered, and shut the door like a judge drops a gavel. I limped into the rain, same movie, different night. Preston had followed me again, not to rescue, just to refuse to let me be alone. "You don't have to go back there," he said. "I have a place for you to stay." "I don't want to be a burden," I said, "because survival teaches you to shrink." "This isn't pity," he said, steady. "It's an invitation from someone who believes in the light inside you." His spare room smelled like jasmine cleaner and new beginnings. The first morning there was a breakfast tray and a note in careful handwriting. "Wishing you a peaceful new day." And I pressed it to my chest like it might leave a mark. Downstairs, I heard him tell Evelyn, "I don't want to rescue her. I want her to stand on her own." Evelyn's reply was a smile you could hear, then stitch her wings back on. Roots and Wings launched the Healing Collection designs for women with injuries or disabilities to feel like themselves again. They made me a design assistant and gave me a corner desk that felt like a promise. When Evelyn set gold scissors in my palm, I shook. "Don't be afraid," she said, warm hand on my shoulder. "You're not cutting fabric, you're cutting the past." So I cut and sketched and bled a little, when the needle bit me a bead of red, like a reminder that beauty has a cost, and for once the cost made sense. Preston called me into his office as sunset set the windows on fire. "Harlem Black Fashion Gala," he said, sliding an envelope across the table. "I want you to represent us." My heart banged on my ribs like a neighbor with urgent news. "Me? How?" "Because you understand how to rise from ruins," he said, simple like fact. That night he brought a box to my door. Inside were custom heels adjusted for my stance. "If you fall," he said, "I'll catch you." I laughed through tears because I'd never worn heels in my life. I'm afraid I admitted. "Good," he said. "Let fear come along. It can't drive." Here's the twist. An anonymous email hit the fashion desk accusing me of stealing designs from a colleague. Attached were sketches stamped and signed by Kayla, time-stamped like a trap. By noon, my face was a headline. "Fraud Pity Queen, cancel her." Investors called with careful voices that hurt more than shouting. The Harlem Committee asked very calm questions that felt like knives wrapped in napkins. My throat closed around air. "I didn't do this," as I told Preston. "You have to believe me." "I do," he said, already dialing. He hired a private investigator with quiet shoes and wolf eyes. 48 hours later, we had receipts. Kayla had copied my internal drafts and backdated them, and the push money that amplified the smear came straight out of an account Vanessa had just raided. The file in my hands felt heavy with ugly truth. "We can make this public," Preston said, "or you can choose another way." I went to Vanessa's house for the last time, the place where the porch still knew the sound of my crutch, and stood in the doorway she used to fill with orders. Why I asked just that one word? She laughed, brittle. "Because you have what I never will. Kindness, love, light." She hurled a glass and watched it shatter, then leaned in close and breathed poison. "You think you're so clean. Your father isn't who you believe. He betrayed your mother." The floor tilted. The air got thin. I left before the lie could root. I walked to the Chattahoochee and sat while the river moved like it was bored of human drama. Rain misted my hair. Preston found me and wrapped his coat around my shoulders like a promise. "Have I lived a lie?" I asked him. "No," he said without blinking. "You've lived in love. Love isn't a lie." I went home and stitched gold thread into the edge of a letter to my father. "Daddy, I don't know what is true and what belongs to bitter mouths, but I know I'm still your daughter, and I'm going to step on that Harlem stage even if every crack in my heart shows." At City Hall in Harlem, the lobby buzzed like a beehive camera's model's nerves. Backstage, a banner said, "Roots and Wings Atelier, designer Amira Johnson." And my name looked like a door opening. A logistics kid ran in breathless. Someone broke into storage. We ran. Gasoline shimmered on tile like a rainbow in hell. For a second, the air held, then the spark leapt greedy. Flames crawled up the walls and the room roared. Preston dragged a stylist out by the elbow, coughing, barking orders like a lifeguard. Everyone out. Amira back. I should have listened. Probably. But the original Soul Reborn sketch had caught fire, and some promises you keep even if they burn. I ripped it down, heat, biting my hands, the smell of singe like caramel, if caramel had teeth. Firefighters cracked the doors, slammed the beast to steam. Police cuffed Vanessa in the corridor, soot-streaked eyes empty. "You win," she rasped. I felt tired mercy and said the truest thing I had. "You didn't lose to me. You lost to your lies." The committee wanted to cancel. Sensible. Everyone nodded and breathed relief like a medicine. I looked at the floor, black with ash, scattered with glass, glittering like fallen stars, and something quiet and stubborn rose. "We walk," I told Preston. "Not for press, not for fame, for hope." He scanned my face and nodded once like a vow. Then we walk. No stage lights, no soundtrack, just cold sun pouring through a broken window, turning smoke into gold. We lined up and stepped out. Gold stitches caught light, and the air made a sound I still don't have a name for, part prayer, part thunder. I walked. The heels clicked slow, my legs trembled, my heart didn't. I took the tiny mic and said I spent years in the dark, thinking I wasn't enough. Today I learned light doesn't ask us to be perfect. It just asks us to open the door. A journalist whispered, "This isn't fashion, this is faith." And I felt the words land inside me like a key. After I sat on the steps, steam rising off the street, and watched a thin rainbow tilt out of the clouds, like a promise half kept, half still coming. Preston settled his coat on my shoulders, again gentle. "You walked," he said. "You made the whole world walk with you." I shook my head and smiled small. "I just said thank you," I told him, to God, to the people who believed, before there was proof. Back in Atlanta, Evelyn called a small press meeting and handed me something you can't buy. "It's time I passed the needle," she said, eyes bright. "Amira will lead the work ahead." The cameras flashed, and the city felt like it was exhaling joy. A week later, we learned about her lungs and late stage and all the words that drain color out of rooms. I held her hand by a window in the afternoon light and listened to her breathe. "If your hands can't sew," she whispered, mild, in her voice sew with kindness. When she slipped away, rain fell soft, streets washed clean like the city wanted to help. Vanessa ended up in a hospital too, wrists soft, bound eyes dulled to gray. I brought lavender because forgiveness is lighter than hate, and because I'm stubborn about doing the hard thing. "You came to mock me," she said. "No," I told her. "I came to forgive you." She blinked like light hurt. "After what I did?" "I don't forgive your actions," I said steady. "I forgive so my heart won't stay chained." One tear made a brave run down her cheek. For a breath she looked human again, just a woman who lost a fight to the worst part of herself. "Do you think that's fair? To forgive without forgetting? Or does that make me weak?" Daddy came back too, thinner hair, whiter shame rolling off him like heat. We met in the empty house where I'd learned to leave. Dust turned the light into honey, and a fallen picture frame lay cracking the floor. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, voice shaking. "I just wanted to hear you say Daddy one more time." I did. He fell to his knees, and I reached for him, and we cried like kids who finally stopped being strong. He told me about fear and money, and how love makes you blind sometimes. I told him about light, and how it always finds the cracks. "I forgive you," I said, and we both felt something heavy lift. So the story stopped being just mine. Roots and Wings Academy opened on a piece of land by a creek where Mama used to pick wildflowers. We teach older women they're not past their shine. We teach girls with braces to cut patterns for the bodies they live in, not the bodies they were told to want. We carved a wooden sign for the door. "Stitch your dreams back together even if the needle breaks." When a kid looks up at me and asks Miss Amira if the fabric is torn, should we throw it away, I get down eye level and say the line that saved me. Sometimes the torn parts become the most beautiful patterns. I keep the broken bracelet beads in a tin on my desk. I touch them when the world gets loud. I remember the staircase and the thunder, and the way a sketch can feel like a lifeline in both hands. I think about Kayla and what envy can do to a heart about Vanessa, and the cost of choosing jealousy over joy about Evelyn, and the courage it takes to pass the needle. I think about Preston's kind of faith, quiet, present, not flashy, the kind that shows up in storms with an umbrella and belief you can stand on. And I think about you, where you are right now, maybe holding your own broken thing and wondering if it's worth saving. Listen, it is. Light doesn't respect perfect. It respects open. It runs through the cracks like water looking for the thirstiest ground. Here's where it gets messy in a way I hope you'll argue about in the comments. When our Harlem show went viral, so did a question. Is fashion supposed to be an escape or a mirror? Are scars on a runway empowerment or exploitation? Does public forgiveness let abusers off easy, or does it set survivors free? I walked a runway on wet concrete with smoke in my hair and said yes to hope. But I still struggle with the line between mercy and enabling. When someone tries to burn you down, do you forgive them in front of the world, or keep that between you and God? When a colleague steals your work, do you push charges or offer a second chance? When a father fails you, how many chances is enough? Be honest. Where would you draw the line? If it were you, at the door in the rain, in the storage room, with flames waking up on that ash-streaked runway with people waiting, what would you have done? Drop your city below so I know where we're stitching from tonight. Tell me whether you think beauty belongs to everyone or if some stages should stay untouched. Share the moment you chose light, or the moment you couldn't, and why. And if this spoke to any cracked place in you, stick around, because the next chapter will test everything we just said out loud. Hit subscribe. If you want more true stories, told plain and honest, share this with someone who needs to hear they're not trash just because they're torn, and light up the comments with your take. Mercy or justice, mirror or escape, who gets to decide what is beautiful? I'll be down there reading, needle in hand, stitching with you.